Hi, I'm Shannon. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to walk you through the very handy tutorial on how to work with paper templates in your quilt projects. This couldn't be easier, but I wanted to show you 3 different ways that you can work with templates within your quilt patterns. This technique works with any paper templates, but I'm going to be using the Lunar Eclipse quilt pattern as my example. As I said though, this technique can be transferred to any quilt pattern that calls for paper templates. So let's dive in. In the first section, I wanted to walk through the tools and notions that you're going to need to work with paper templates. The first one is that I want you to make sure that you use paper scissors and not fabric scissors. So in my studio, I always have both. I have one pair of scissors that I only use for paper, and then another pair of scissors that I only use for fabric. The same goes for my rotary cutters. I have a rotary cutter. This is the first rotary cutter I ever got, and so I don't use this one anymore. I switched it to just being for paper, and then I have my fabric specific rotary cutter. This comes in handy. It means that I'm not dulling my fabric blades and I'm not dulling my paper blades, and so it just keeps things nice and streamlined within the studio. You're also going to need some marking tools. For marking directly on fabric, I use a friction pen, and then to mark on a plastic templates that I'm going to show you, I use a pencil for that. You're going to need potentially a ruler and potentially some washi tape. So these are all optional things, and you'll see how they come into play in a minute. You'll need some fabric, and you'll also need the quilt pattern that you have that has your paper templates. I'm going to be using the Lunar Eclipse paper templates for this tutorial. As I said though, you can use any paper templates to tackle this technique. When working with paper templates within your quilt patterns, the first step you always want to do after you've printed it out is to double check the 1-inch test box. This will ensure that you've printed your patterns at the correct size. And so here I'm just laying my ruler on top and making sure that that 1-inch test mark is actually printing out at the 1-inch mark. And mine is, so I'm good to proceed. But just double check that you're printing it at the actual size. If you're working with the Lunar Eclipse quilt pattern, the templates are already 100% scaled, so you don't need to modify your printer settings to shrink them or enlarge them. You want to make sure that you're printing it at the actual size. Once you confirm that they've printed out at the actual correct size, then you're good to proceed to cutting them out. And here you want to use your paper scissors and not your fabric scissors for this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right just outside the black line. So you want to keep the integrity of the shape of the paper template. And so you want to try and cut just outside the outer black line of the template. And I'm just going to snip, snip, snip. Another tip is when you're using scissors, you don't want to cut at the tip of your scissor. You actually want to use the full width of the blade. This will help you get a straighter and more accurate cut. Just come around the edge. So try to do this nice and quick. Alright, there's one. And then I'm just going to cut out the one that matches it. When it comes to quilt patterns with templates, you have a couple of options. You can either use the printed version and just go with paper, Or you can get some template plastic, which you can trace your design onto. Or in the case of the Lunar Eclipse quilt pattern, there are some rulers that you can pick up that I'll link to in the description box down below if you want to get a set of acrylic rulers. The acrylic rulers, if you're going to be working with them often, I do find them a great investment. I find I get more accuracy when I cut with the template rulers, but that's just a personal preference. So by no means you don't have to go out and get the rulers. I just mentioned it because I do find that I get more accurate results using the rulers. But you can still make great work just using the paper templates, or going with something a little bit more sturdy and rigid with the template plastic. Entirely up to you, the choice is yours. Once you have your paper templates cut out, you can start laying it out on with the fabric strips. What I like to do is make sure that I'm aligning the straight edges of the paper template with the edge of with the fabric strip. And once I have it there, you have a couple of options. You can go in with a marking tool and mark the line, and then use your fabric scissors or a rotary cutter to cut it out. Or you can just go in freehand and hold it and do it that way. That one scares me a little bit more because I always worry I'm going to cut my hand. There are some metal mesh gloves that you can get to protect yourself if you want to do that type of work, but I don't have one of those nifty gloves. So what I'm going to do is I actually like to take some washi tape. You don't need a lot, just a little bit of washi tape, and I like to make sure that I've got my paper template nice and aligned, and then I just pop a piece of tape right there just to keep it secure and so that it doesn't shift and wiggle around on me. I'll do the same thing on this side just so that I have a nice anchored paper template. From there, what you can do is grab a ruler, and you can use the edge of your ruler to gently follow that curved line while using your rotary cutter at the same time. This will keep your hand away from the blade, which is always nice. It gives you an edge to cut along, and it means that you'll get better results than if you just kind of willy-nilly freehand it. At least that's been my experience. So I'll show you what it looks like. So you want to go slow, you want to take your time, and you just want to continue to run the edge of that ruler along the edge of the paper template, and then use your rotary cutter to cut it out. And once you get up here, like so. And then you can remove your template, and there you have one nicely cut out round pie. When cutting out the L shapes, or what I like to call the L shapes, the outer pie pieces, it's the same process. So we're gonna come back to the paper templates. I like to lay the paper template along the straight edges of the square. And then if you want, this is definitely not a requirement, but I do find that it just keeps things a little bit more stable as I cut. And I'm just gonna tape that down to keep it secure. And I'll do that again on the other side here. And then using the ruler and a rotary cutter, I'm gonna repeat that action and making sure that I take my time so that I try and get as accurate a cut as possible, preserving the integrity of the template and trying to trim the least amount of that paper template as possible. So take your time. This is not a rush. You don't want to be ruining your fabric. And there is your outer piece cut. So that's showing you with the paper templates, taping it down with a little bit of washi tape so that things don't budge on you. So this you're not going to use for the pattern in question, but you will come back to using your little pie piece, and this is how it will come together. If you would prefer to work with the plastic template sheets, the process can be easier. So what I'm going to do is I've just laid it on top of my paper template, and then I'm going to first start with take my ruler and get a nice straight edge along the bottom. I tend to use a pencil, but this is just preference. You can absolutely use a pen if you prefer. Once I have my bottom line done, then I'm going to come along and just take my time to trace along the outer edge of that curve. And it will look something like that. Hopefully you can kind of see my markings there. Then using your paper scissors, you'll come in and cut that template out. At this point, what I like to do is I like to write on my template. So it's the Lunar Eclipse template E. That way I know that I can keep track of my templates and I can reuse them multiple times for however many times I need to make this quilt pattern. To cut your blocks using the plastic template that you've created, you can again come back in with your washi tape to just hold that in place. And you can lay that there. And you can come in, at this point I'll show you to trace it using a erasable marking tool. Just go ahead and use the plastic as a guide to run your marking tool around the edge. Once you've got that done, you can come in with your fabric scissors and come in and cut right out on that line. Now, one thing to note is when you're using your scissors, it's best to use the whole length of your scissor. So don't cut too much at the tip because your results won't be as accurate. You'll get a straighter, more accurate cut by using the actual full length of the scissors. Let the scissors do the work for you. And there you are. There is outer pieces cut using the paper template and the plastic template, so you can see them both in action and choose whichever method works best for you. You also have the option of picking up the Drunkard's Path ruler templates. I will have these linked in the description down below so that if you prefer working with an acrylic template, you have that option as well. When it comes to working with your width of fabric strips with your Lunar Eclipse templates, whether you're working with the paper ones or you've gone ahead and made some using the template plastic, you have a couple of options. You can go with the washi tape, which I've already shown you, or you can also take just some regular Scotch tape and fold it in on itself like so, and then just stick it to the back of it. This will help it just stay in place, and so it won't move around on you. And what I have is I actually have this folded in half, so I'm actually making 2 cuts at once, which also means I'm going to have the mirror image of this piece. So just be mindful of that if you're working with a print. We're going to be cutting one this way, and the one underneath is going to be the opposite direction, which I'll show you in a second. So all you want to do is you can take your ruler. You can do freehand. As I've said, I find that a little bit scary. So I tend to prefer to use the ruler method when I'm working with templates. And so all I'm going to do is just very gently run my ruler and my rotary cutter at the same time as I move along the edge of the template. Now, it's probably tough for you to see the template just because it's clear, but it's there. And there we go. We've got our piece cut out. I can unstick it and then just re-stick it right away along that edge. And then you'll see I've got 2 mirror image pieces cut out. So I would continue down this strip, cutting them. Sorry, let me just reposition that. So what I would do is I would just keep cutting. I would cut this one, I would take it out, and then I would reposition it, and I would keep cutting until I had all of my pieces cut out of the strip in question. So that's one method. I also wanted to quickly show you using the rulers. So if you do decide to go out and purchase a set of Junkers Path rulers, what that's going to look like is you're just going to place it on the edge. So exactly as I've shown you, we're always lining up the straight edges on the straight edges of either the strip, or in this case we're working with a block. So we're just going to use the template. We're going to place it there, and then I like to keep my fingers on it, putting a good amount of pressure, and then I run my blade just along the edge of the template. This piece we can discard, and then this is what we're left with for the outer piece of our pie. Couldn't be simpler than that, my friends. Easy peasy, don't make it more complex. So you have 3 options. You can go with the paper templates, you can go with the template plastic versions that you create yourself, or you can pick up a set of acrylic rulers. No matter which option you go with, my friends, you will still end up with beautiful Lunar Eclipse quilt blocks. I hope you found that helpful, and I showed you that there's nothing to be worried about when working with paper templates within a quilt pattern. There's a few different options on how you can work with them. I showed you the paper way, and then I also showed you the working with the plastic template way, or you even have the option of picking up some acrylic rulers if that suits your fancy a little bit more. But all that to say that there's no fear to be had when working with paper templates within a quilt pattern. And I hope that you found this helpful and it took some of the fear out of working with paper templates. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe, as I'm always coming out with new tutorials to help you in your quilty journey. Thank you so much for joining me today. It always warms my heart to have you join me for these sessions, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.